Alright, welcome to today's lesson. This lesson, the student objective that we're going to look at is making a rotation 90 degrees clockwise. Okay? Clockwise is literally what it says. It is the direction that the hands on a clock move. Your vocabulary word is rotation. A rotation occurs when an object is turned. Now your HLQ, you're not going to understand right away. You will have to wait until the end of the lesson to understand what it's asking. But you're going to explain what x comma y changed to y comma negative x is. You're going to have to be detailed. The example we're going to use today is going to start with this right triangle. This right triangle that we've got is labeled A, B, and C. Again, we're going to call this our original. Now, when we take this original, we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. We're going to take it 90 degrees clockwise. So we're going to be turning, if this is 12 o'clock on our 12 on our clock, we're going to be turning from 12 towards 3. So when we actually make this rotation, we're going to change our points from our original A to A prime, B to B prime, C to C prime. Our point A will come to this point A prime here. Location of B, as it rotates 90 degrees, will become this point here. And again, we will call it B prime. Notice that we are denoting a prime by putting the apostrophe down. Okay? And finally, C prime will work its way to this position here, C prime. Now, I'm going to use a ruler and make this nice and straight. Use whatever you've got. Okay? You got a ruler, use a ruler. You got a edge of the book, use the edge of the book. You've got a cousin who has a flat head. Put their head down. Let's get this sucker straight. Okay? Better you take notes. The clearer you take notes, better off you're going to be. So, we got A prime, B prime, C prime. To help us figure out exactly what has happened from our original to our image, we're going to look at the individual points. Because A has gone from here to here, B has rotated all the way up to here, and C rotated all the way through down to here. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide our paper down just a little bit, and we're going to look at A prime, B, B prime, C, and C prime. So I'm going to make two columns. We'll start with A. Point A is located at a -1, +1. Whereas A prime is located at a +1, +1. So 1, 1 for A prime. Alright? Now, we will take B and look at B prime. B, we're going to be looking at a -3, 1. And B prime will be looking at a +1, 3, +3. Alright? And finally, we're going to look at C to C prime. Well, C is starting out at a -1, +3, and it's changing to a +3, +1. So, we're looking at these, okay? And we're looking at the points to try to figure out what exactly happened. Let me slide this up a little bit more. Well, from A to A prime doesn't really help us because we're just looking at a bunch of ones. But we can kind of see a pattern between B and B prime and C prime. If you notice, the value for X and Y here have switched here. My 3 is now in my Y's place instead of my X. My 1 is now in my X's place instead of my Y. Same thing here. 1 and 3 have switched. But you also notice something else. Negative now becomes positive. Negative now becomes positive. This is where it goes back to the HLQ. When we start out over here, we have our points in the form X, Y. But when we change it by rotating it 90 degrees clockwise, our points are rewritten in the form y, comma, negative x. So let's look at what actually happens to A. Okay? So A starts off with a negative 1, comma 1. Well, the first thing that's going to happen is these 2 points, negative 1 and positive 1, are going to trade places. So this change that occurs becomes positive 1 here, followed by negative 1 here. But there's something else that happens. We are multiplying again by a negative. So we don't have 1 negative here, we have 2 negatives. And in math, this is the only time 2 wrongs make a right. A negative negative, or a negative times a negative, always creates a positive. So now we have the point 1, comma 1. Now you can see what actually is occurring between A to A prime. The same thing happens B to B prime. C to C prime, still all true. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to flip the page, and we're going to have you guys do a little practice problem for me. Okay? We're going to actually work with the formula that we have for our practice problem. X, comma, y will change to y, comma, negative x. So, that being said, here's what we got. I want you to convert number 1, we'll call it x. We don't need x. We'll call it 2, 3. Okay? And we're going to do problem number 2. We'll call it negative 3 and negative 1. We're going to convert those 2 points. Alright? Have this ready when you come to class, and we'll be good to roll. Enjoy it, guys.